Hello viewers, thank you for joining me. I've decided that this year's extra reviews are just going to be whatever I really want to see. Some of these are sure to finally be some of the shows that lost their polls, though we may be having some more runner-up polls too. But this one was simply an idea that grabbed me so hard I didn't even want to put it to a poll. Goodnight World introduces us to a virtual reality game called Planet. It's got pretty much everything you could want from this sort of game. There are magic and monsters and guilds you can join to fight them and make some friends online. The 4 strongest players are a group known as the Akabane family, though just their name is enough to send most players running in the other direction. When they're all logged in, they mostly spend their time role-playing as a happy family. No decisions are made without their leader, Shiro's, input, but he's fair and kind, and what's most important to him is that everyone's getting as much fulfillment out of their online lives here as possible. Basically, he's the kind of father figure anyone would love to have. Mei is their master healer and the picture-perfect mother. She spends her time cooking for them all and tending to her garden. She's just all around as sweet as it gets. The older son, Ichi, is the most aggressive of the bunch. He's got quite the reputation for his temper. He used to go around killing other players over the smallest slights. He's been reined in a lot, found a different way to enjoy his time here, since basically being adopted by Shiro and Mei. And A is the younger son, good-natured and excitable. He's never really played video games before this one. His name is actually a string of A's because he wasn't sure what to put, and now he's Planet's best student. Though he's not much of a fighter himself, A is basically a walking encyclopedia of all the game's functions and monsters and their weaknesses. To some extent, I think all stories about immersive game worlds like this one tackle issues like escapism and online relationships being equally valuable. Goodnight World really goes in hard on those concepts from the very beginning. The Akabane family only has one serious rule. They never ask each other about their real lives, the people they are outside of this game. As a result, they've managed to remain oblivious to some pretty dark secrets. The big one being that these 4 are all members of a biological family in the real world, one so broken that they don't even talk to each other anymore, despite living in the same house. When we do pull back to the real world, we usually follow Ichi's alter ego, Taichiro Arima, who's grown to be a full-on neat and shut-in, only leaving his room when absolutely necessary. The tone shift when you leave the game world is immediate and dramatic. Gone are the bright colors and cheerful music. Every room in the Arima household is shadowy and depressing, and Taichiro's about as on edge as they come. The tension that suddenly builds when he does accidentally run into one of the other members of his family and thinks they might try to speak to him makes it feel like a life-or-death issue. My early impression of the Arima family was that they were each as bad as the others. They all clearly want to rekindle some kind of family connection, no matter how in denial Taichiro may be about it, but just can't seem to bring themselves to do it. But we're given hints, as early as the first episode, that this isn't just a tragedy of modern society, communication skills being lost in the age of social media type story. Clearly something happened to destroy the Arima's bond, and the broken picture frame with the photo showing that there used to be a 3rd child in this family makes it pretty easy to guess what that something was. And there's nothing I love like a good grief storyline, but it'll be a while before the series properly explores that. In the meantime, things are heating up in the game world. A mysterious creature known as the Blackbird is considered Planet's ultimate secret extra boss. Until recently, most players didn't believe the Blackbird really existed. It was a forum board legend. But the admins have just announced a competition, with the prize including real-world money for any player who can find and defeat the bird. Understandably, this leads to a lot of excitement. Ichi's certainly gunning for the prize, a way to fund his shut-in lifestyle, and though he may be one of the strongest players in the game, that doesn't mean he has no competition. The Pirates are one of the biggest guilds in Planet, and their captain, a girl named Pico, used to be Ichi's only friend. They had a bit of a Bonnie and Clyde thing going on, going around robbing and killing other players and using Planet as stress relief, basically. A mostly harmless way to act out all the anger they felt towards their real lives. Pico started the pirates in that vein, trying to entice Ichi back to her after he was reformed by the Akabane family. It's since grown into something bigger than she could have ever imagined. There are a lot of people frustrated with their daily lives, looking to act out somewhere there won't be consequences. It's another conflict that might seem a little cliché these days, but which I liked to see addressed. Made the world feel that much more real. In any online game like this, where you're not just playing against computers, there are gonna be people whose ideal style of play ruins the experience for everyone else. Understandably, there's a ton of hate for the pirates, and their argument feels a little flimsy, that if the way they play was really so wrong, the system wouldn't allow you to do things like rob people, that the pirates are about freedom, a haven for people who feel trapped by their real-world lives. It's just very easily countered, because they love to go on about how much joy Planet and this guild brings them, how for most of them it's the highlight of their day, and it stands to reason that if the joy they find in this game is as real and valid as anything they'd encounter in the real world, then the distress they're causing other players is equally real. And if you can acknowledge that and still go around killing other players for fun, then you're just an asshole. And I really feel like that wasn't what the writers were going for. The main group at the heart of the pirates are made to be pretty sympathetic, actually. Pico herself is far from the cut-and-dry, selfish villain she first appears to be. I was actually really impressed by how much she grew on me. She genuinely cares about her guild members and has gotten to know them as people and formed some real friendships. She knows exactly what they're running to Planet to escape from in their real lives, and she'll happily take the brunt of the public's hatred as their leader if it means the others are free to play unhindered. And her feelings for Ichi run pretty deep. Wanting him back isn't just a matter of jealousy. She doesn't think the Akabanes are good for him, that this fake family is taking the escapism a step too far, and she makes some good points. It's one thing to rely on a game to make your real life bearable. She can't support the way he's trying to shut out the real world entirely. In fact, their friendship broke off because she started suggesting they meet up in real life. I try to avoid major spoilers in most of my reviews, so there's not much else I can say about Pico, just that she wasn't the only character who grew on me unexpectedly. While some of the issues this show tackles may seem cliché or predictable, it did also have some great twists and turns, some things I genuinely did not see coming. In Pico's case specifically, there was a big reveal I didn't even believe at first, because they'd managed to make her viewpoint on the situation so convincing. But I'll leave that there. The real trouble comes when the Blackbird suddenly shows up at the Akabane's house one day and quickly proves that even the 4 strongest players combined are no match for it. A sacrifices himself so the rest of the family can escape, figuring the money and stats he'll lose as the game's death penalty can easily be made back up later. But Asuma Arima is the first to learn that death at the Blackbird's hands forcefully logs you out of the game and inflicts stroke-like symptoms through the user's headgear. Taichiro finds his brother collapsed in his bedroom, and thus the first seeds are planted as to the secret of the Akabane family's true identities. The boys had already known their father was this genius programmer. Soon after this, they learn he developed Planet specifically, and had been tasked with creating this revolutionary, super-powered AI, which he lost control over, leading to the Blackbird, and one of the game's most enthusiastic players is taking advantage of the bird's powers to try and merge Planet and the real world, so they can all escape their awful real lives forever. As I've already said, in this age of high-tech sci-fi stories, none of the ideas here are particularly new, but I can't stress enough how well they work with this story and its main themes. At its heart, Goodnight World is about when escapism goes too far, when you reach a point where you're only hurting yourself and your loved ones by refusing to face even the hardest parts of life. It's so important to me to acknowledge that this final stage of the conflict wasn't just a way to ramp up the drama, but what felt like a natural escalation of the very issues this show had been exploring from episode 1. There are a lot of elements to this plot, and I was really on guard for it to start feeling like the writers were trying to do too much, more than they had time for in just 12 episodes, but it all fit together so well. This isn't to say everything was perfect. I was in love with this premise from the moment I read the summary, but it doesn't exactly have the sort of feel-good conclusion I think you'd naturally expect from it. It's not a sad ending, but the Arima family doesn't come back together quite the way I wanted them to. The brothers reconnect in a way that hit all the right buttons. It's the dad who's the real problem. He's just so unlikable, and I really did try to give him a chance. This show is kinda special in the sense that it provides you with a clear image of who each of the characters would really like to be if they were able to be their ideal selves. There were a lot of great little details, but I especially liked what they did with the names. Taichiro chose Ichi, the Japanese word for the number 1. He's aggressive enough that most other players probably assume it indicates his desire to be the top-ranked player, but I think it likely has to do with being the firstborn in his family. Something he clearly does care about, as much as he tries to tell himself he's written off all his connections to the real world. And Shiro is the Japanese word for white. Kojiro Arima clearly wants to be seen as a white knight type of figure, at least through his family's eyes. As gifted as he is, he's also incredibly insecure, causing him to push them away out of fear of criticism or rejection, and thus leading to the rejection. But they really take it to an extreme. At the point where you're flat out abusing your kids, I don't think it really matters what the underlying insecurities are anymore, or how much you wish you were a better person. And I still think I could have found some sympathy for him if it had only gotten really bad after his daughter's death, but he was always like this. It feels a little hypocritical, what with how often I've said the best characters are the ones with relatable flaws. I guess it comes down to the dad never getting quite the redemption I was hoping for. He was vain and just a little pathetic all the way to the end. I wanted better for his relationship with his family. But just because this show didn't deliver on everything I wanted to see, doesn't mean it didn't still deliver. The ending may not have been as soft and mushy as I'd hoped, but it was absolutely still emotional. Goodnight World came together to be a really great story. I recommend giving it a chance if you skipped it. Thank you for watching.